Hello and welcome to Car Retrospective, where today we'll take a look at one of the true titans of Japanese motoring, the Honda Jazz. The Honda NSX. Let's have a look. The 1980s was a quote-unquote radical time for car design. A lot of manufacturers in Europe like Ferrari and Lamborghini were producing some incredible mid-engine sports cars, but over in Japan, not so much. But it's not like they didn't want to. Honda was one such company that wanted in on this hot new take on the sports car. Honda mainly stuck with the tried and tested front-engine, front-wheel drive formula used on many of their cars. Engineers, however, began to experiment with the viability of different layouts for future products. They carried out a number of experiments, one of which was taking a Honda City, removing the engine and placing it behind the driver. Although it was never intended to go into production, the test laps that were carried out were supposedly so fun that the higher-ups at Honda were finally convinced to get to work on a proper sports car. By 1984, Honda had commissioned our Italian friends Pininfarina to design a concept car. The result was the wacky HPX, standing for Honda Pininfarina Experimental, obviously. The car was powered by a 2-litre V6, of course being mid-mounted. Despite looking a little, odd, Honda were enamoured with it, and so the project was given the full go-ahead and it was swung into full force. The guidelines for the final car were simple: make it faster than anything coming out of Italy and Germany. The project at this point also received a new nickname, NSX. Some say it stands for New Sports Car Experimental, while others say it stands for New Sports Car Unknown World, as in the X being from a mathematical equation relating to the unknown. Who really cares though, because let's face it, both sound incredibly cool. The team eventually set their benchmark as the new Ferrari 328, first of all to match its speed, but also to exceed its reliability and to offer a lower price for consumers. To achieve this, a brand spanking new 3-litre V6 replaced the old 2-litre V6 from the HPX, making 270 horsepower with a high redline of over 8,300 RPM. It was later fitted with Honda's VTEC system to increase performance and durability, but the changes actually caused the engine to be too large for the engine bay designed for the original, smaller engine. So, being the quick-thinking Japanese people that they were, they simply rotated the engine 5 degrees in order to fit it, and, if it works, then it works. Good job. The meticulous design process didn't stop there. The team had taken design notes from all things an F-16 fighter jet, specifically the 360-degree view that the pilots had. They also examined the designs of hydroplane boats and Formula 1 cars and came up with the idea of using a cab-forward layout. This would both increase the driver's visibility and increase high-speed stability due to the abnormally long tail. And this mentality wasn't even limited to the outside. Because Honda intended on using loads of components like anti-lock braking, power steering, aircon and power windows, the NSX would be quite heavy. So, to combat that, Honda just had to go and reinvent the wheel. The NSX was the first ever production car to be built upon an all-aluminium semi-monocoque chassis. It's also important to note Honda's efforts in Formula 1 at the time, which specifically helped in the designing and specifically the testing of their NSX. Satoru Nakajima, a respected Formula 1 driver, tested the endurance of the chassis at the Suzuka circuit in a number of endurance drives. And of course, there was Ayrton Senna. After doing a number of tests in the car personally, again at the Suzuka circuit, as well as at the Nürburgring, Senna advised the team to stiffen the chassis, which of course they did. Senna himself would actually go on to own 3 separate NSXs before his death in 1994. The chassis, after the feedback, was painstakingly redesigned over the following months. Supposedly, the rectified chassis was 50% stiffer with a relatively small increase in weight. By this point, the NSX was almost ready, and this neatly coincided with Honda's debut of its luxury brand, Acura, in the United States. Honda realised that announcing the NSX alongside Acura would be the perfect halo car, a great way to kick off the brand. It made its debut at the 1989 Chicago Auto Show and then later on in October of the same year at the Tokyo Motor Show. The car finally went on sale in mid-1990 and both critics and the public alike swooned over it. The NSX showcased not only the innovations it broke ground with, but also the technology that Honda had implemented from their racing efforts. Honda, almost overnight, had gone from being known as the humble manufacturer who produced the likes of the Civic to the beast from the East who was ready to conquer the Europeans. And thanks to the inputs from Senna, many considered the NSX the new king of the sports car. However, Honda knew that they faced a problem with the original NSX. While being created under rigorous track-orientated conditions, the manufacturer knew that in order to sell a profitable amount of the things, they'd have to include a lot of driver comforts, which would end up making the car a lot slower and heavier than what it should be. So while this version did go on sale in 1990, in 1992 they stripped out the aircon, the radio, the spare tyre and anything else quote-unquote unnecessary and came up with the fierce little NSX Type R, the R of course standing for race. One thing the engineers really pushed in the R was the weight reduction. The likes of the aircon, traction control, sound system and the spare tyre were all removed, as well as replacing things like the wheels, seats and even the leather gear knob with lightweight alternatives. It may sound ridiculous, but all these little changes ended up making the R 120 kilograms lighter than the original NSX. The Type R, unfortunately, was limited to just 483 models, exclusively for the Japanese domestic market between 1992 and 1995. Speaking of 95, Honda also introduced the NSX-T in the same year, with the T standing for Targa. It was an open top.
Really exciting, guys.
While the Targa was a separate model to the hardtop NSX in both the Japanese and European markets, in the good old United States of A, the Targa effectively replaced the original, and by 1995 you could not place an order for anything but the Targa domestically. The roof was a fairly important component in the NSX's rigidity, so by removing it the car was no longer as structurally sound. Honda responded to this by adding 45 kilograms or 100 pounds of structural reinforcement on the bulkheads and roof pillars, as well in other places around the car. So while the Targa did offer a unique open-top experience that other Japanese cars simply couldn't, it did sacrifice the lightweight build of the original hardtop. However, even though the NSX received critical acclaim upon its introduction at the start of the decade, sales were dropping. They did see a brief spike when the Targa was introduced in 1995, but they continued to drop thereafter. In response, Honda introduced an upgraded version in 1997, now with a 3.2-litre V6, now up to 290 horsepower. 1997 also saw once again the JDM only Type S, which was basically an NSX optimised for handling. All of these versions of the NSX are beginning to melt together at this point, but the 1999 Alex Zanardi edition was a radical new introduction for the US market only. There were just 51 models built in this gorgeous red to commemorate Zanardi's back-to-back wins while racing for Honda. However, it's fair to say that throughout the 90s, the NSX hadn't seen many, if any, revisions at all. While the design was futuristic going into the 90s and still looks incredible to this day, by the time it was leaving them, it was beginning to look just a little outdated. In 2002, the car saw a number of modifications to bring it up to a modern standard, most notably the switch from the iconic pop-up headlights to the fixed lights instead, and oh god, I know it's kind of like a legality thing, they sort of had to do it, but those pop-ups, man. Those pop-ups. This, along with some other alterations, actually lowered the drag coefficient overall, allowing for better acceleration and top speed. However, these changes simply weren't enough to keep the car afloat. Sales weren't changing, and so it was inevitable it was going to come to an end, and by 2005 production had ended. The car had only managed to sell 18,000 units over its 15-year lifespan. And that was the end of that. Okay, now I'm not gonna do this whole shtick of me pretending there's nothing left and that's the end of the story when clearly there is, so let's just move on. Honda in 2007 actually announced a successor to the NSX and planned to have it launched by 2010. It would have been powered by an unfamiliar V10 and prototypes were actually built and tested. Then 2008 sort of happened and, you know, everyone sort of just stopped spending money altogether and supercars weren't really in the best position and the project was canned soon after. Until 2011, in which Honda returned to the idea. The V10 concept was thrown out of the window, but that didn't mean that Honda was skimping out on building a meaty new car. The new NSX, which now stood for New Sports Experimental, was a hybrid powered both by a 3.5 litre turbocharged V6 and 3 electric motors, which when working in tandem made 573 horsepower! A huge step up from the original, it's fair to say. The car was first revealed in 2012 as a concept, then again in 2015 as a fully fledged car, and it finally went on sale in 2016. Thing is, the new NSX is an amazing car, it's not an NSX to me. Put these two side by side and they look completely unrelated. Does it really deserve to bear the historic badge? Not in my opinion, no. Whether you think the original NSX is king or whether you think the new NSX is a representation of the future, you can't deny that the NSX had a lengthy career that is still going strong to this day. From its lengthy and meticulous development phase to construct the perfect car, its involvement with one of the greatest racing drivers in history, or to its numerous additions over the years, the NSX managed to topple even the titans of European performance. It proved that the Japanese didn't just have to build cheap compact economy cars, they could put some power behind the wheel too. Thank you so much for sitting through that video, with a very special thanks to Conrad's son and Jonas, who are very generously donating at the highest tier on my Patreon. Just £1 a month is an amazing help, and each tier has some rewards in them to perhaps make the deal a little more rewarding. I also have a Discord server and an Instagram page, links in the description below. Subscribe, put on the bell, you know the drill. Again, thank you for watching and take care.